You might assume it takes months or even years of visualization, healing, and effort to transform your life. That real breakthroughs only come after prolonged suffering. That alignment is something achieved only after ticking every spiritual box and mastering countless techniques. But what if the real transformation, the true quantum leap, happens in a moment so subtle that most people completely overlook it? There is a hidden pattern that appears right before a person's reality shifts, but it's invisible to the untrained eye. It doesn't happen when someone tries harder or pushes more. It happens when something within them releases, stops resisting, stops doubting, stops striving. That's when the field begins to respond. In this video, we'll dive into the exact energetic frequency that triggers a quantum change and explore why simplicity is the one thing your ego resists the most. You'll learn the energy-based skills that matter more than any strategy, the subtle signs that you're on the edge of a timeline shift, and why breakdowns aren't failures, but sacred initiations. But let's begin with something you've likely felt, though you may never have had the words to name it. That resistance to ease. That moment when things begin to flow and it unsettles you. That moment when you feel deep inner clarity and your mind demands proof. You've been there. The friction between your soul's truth and your ego's fear. We live in a society that glorifies struggle. Effort is celebrated. Complexity is idolized. If something feels too simple, it must be wrong. If it arrives too easily, we convince ourselves we didn't earn it. But the quantum field doesn't care how hard you work. It responds to how clear your frequency is. And clarity almost always lives in simplicity. The challenge? Simplicity threatens the false self. Because if it's truly that simple, what was all the struggle for? If things can change easily, what does that say about the identity you've built around proving, fixing, or endlessly trying? Simplicity strips away the story. And when the story fades, there's nothing left to hide behind. This is why many people unconsciously sabotage their own evolution, not because they're broken, but because they're scared of how silent truth can be. They expect thunder, but what arrives is stillness. They want fireworks. The field offers quiet. Yet, it's in that quiet that transformation begins. The quantum field always mirrors who you're being, not what you're asking for. It's not waiting for your next affirmation. It's syncing with your present identity. And the moment you stop forcing and start being, the feedback loop changes. You stop looking outside for confirmation. You stop adjusting your inner world to match your outer world. Instead, you begin to hold your tone regardless of what's happening. This is the difference between manifesting and shifting. Manifesting often implies striving for what you don't yet have. Shifting means becoming the version of you who already lives the new reality in a different now. The only thing standing between you and that reality isn't time or effort. It's your frequency. So, let me ask you, what if your transformation isn't difficult, just unfamiliar? What if the reason you're stuck isn't your surroundings, but your attachment to complexity? What if instead of feeling your way into a new timeline, you've been trying to think your way into it? In the next part of this message, we'll explore why so many people struggle to hold a stable signal and how your unnoticed patterns might be generating interference that the universe doesn't recognize. You'll uncover the subtle ways you block resonance and learn how to transmit a frequency that life can finally respond to. Stay with this, because simplicity, it's your access point. And once you truly feel it, everything starts shifting. If quantum change is so simple, then why do so few people actually experience it? Why does it seem like some invisible wall keeps you circling the same emotions even when you know better? Why do your efforts stall right when it seems like you're about to break through? Because simplicity asks for something deeper than effort. It demands awareness. And awareness without the buffer of complexity can feel incredibly raw. When things are complicated, you can point to the technique, the method, the process. But when it's stripped down and simple, there's no shield. The spotlight turns inward and you're faced with one question. Am I actually ready to shift? Let's start with what keeps most people from maintaining the right frequency. Blind spots. These aren't failures. They're unconscious loops you've grown too familiar with to notice. Emotional defaults that feel normal. Stories you've told yourself so often they've become indistinguishable from fact. But here's the truth. The quantum doesn't react to what you think you want. It mirrors who you already are beneath the surface. So, while your conscious mind is picturing wealth, your frequency may still be laced with scarcity. Not from lack of trying, but from never investigating your baseline signal. Pause and feel that. What kind of energy are you broadcasting when no one is around? What's the emotional atmosphere of your internal world when the work is done? That's your true frequency. That's what the field aligns to. This is where the first real skill begins. Self-awareness. And not just the kind that comes from journaling or reflection. This is the awareness that witnesses your thoughts in real time, without needing to fix them. The kind that notices when you're slipping into survival mode and chooses not to follow it. The awareness that creates space between stimulus and identity. Next comes a shift that's even more powerful. Radical responsibility. This is the turning point. It's not about blaming yourself. It's about owning what you're projecting, even the parts you'd rather ignore. When you move from why is this happening to me to what is this revealing about my frequency, the field responds differently. Victim energy is noisy but unstable. Responsibility is subtle but magnetic. And then comes the next level practice, accountability. States. These are the internal frequencies you learn to return to again and again, no matter what's happening externally. Most people wait for life to confirm their energy. But those who shift timelines, they anchor it first. But those who truly shift timelines learn to maintain their frequency until reality has no choice but to align. Accountability means honoring your energetic state even when it's uncomfortable, even when logic says you're delusional, even when everything looks stuck. And then comes the most paradoxical practice of all, releasing the need to interpret. We've been conditioned to assign meaning to everything. This is good. That's bad. This means I'm getting closer. That means I've failed. But what if your lowest point is actually the final stage before breakthrough? What if the chaos you're feeling is just your old vibration falling apart? Detachment doesn't mean shutting off your emotions. It means dropping the habit of assigning them meaning. It means allowing your experience to move through without judgment. Because in the quantum, time isn't linear. The darkest part may be the exact moment your energy field is reconfiguring to receive what you've been asking for. You're not just learning to shift your mindset. You're learning to sustain a vibration as if it were already reality. And that demands boldness. It's easier to keep yourself busy with techniques and affirmations. It's harder to sit in silence and admit, I've been looping because I'm still filtering reality through the lens of my past. The quantum leap isn't complicated, but it's precise. It cuts straight through your illusions. It reveals the parts of you that still rely on chaos to feel in control and gently asks, are you finally ready to release them? In the next part, we'll explore the energetic moment just before the shift takes hold. That strange magnetic pressure that builds when your former self begins to dissolve and a new timeline starts to emerge. Most people mistake this feeling for collapse. But when you understand what's really happening, you'll see it for what it is. The edge of your transformation. Stay with this because what's coming next is the intersection point where your past releases you and your aligned frequency takes over. There's a moment, quiet, confusing, and often misread that nearly always shows up just before a genuine quantum shift. It's that transitional space where your old reality begins to lose its grip. But your new path hasn't fully landed. You feel caught between worlds, like you're standing in a corridor between identities. The old story doesn't fit anymore. The new one isn't clear, and everything in you wants to act, fix, or escape. But in truth, you're on the edge of change. This phase is powerful, but it rarely feels that way. It can surface as exhaustion, inner dissonance, lack of clarity, or even despair. It may feel like everything's falling apart, like what once felt certain is slipping away, like your dream is fading instead of coming into view. And if you don't understand what's happening, you'll misinterpret it. You'll assume you messed up. You'll pull back, try to force results, or worst of all, begin to doubt yourself. But here's the deeper truth. This isn't a failure. It's recalibration. Before any leap in consciousness, your energetic field must release its current resonance. Think of it like tuning away from one radio frequency before sinking into another. What happens in between? Static. That feeling of static, the confusion, emotional tension, an urge to escape, isn't a red flag. It's an entry point. Your current frequency can't sustain your next level. That's why it feels like everything is unraveling. Here's what's actually happening. The energy that held your former identity in place is unraveling. The beliefs, patterns, and energetic habits that defined the you of yesterday are losing their grip. And without that energetic structure, your ego has nothing to hold on to. So, it panics. It generates fear, self-doubt, and inner chaos. But this isn't failure. This is your ego pulling you back into the familiar. This is the exact moment when most people turn around, not because they're blocked, but because they misinterpret the friction of growth as a sign to stop. But the truth is, if things feel uncertain, you're almost there. If it feels wobbly, you're close. Because what's really happening is that your energy is shedding everything that no longer fits your new frequency. That's why detachment becomes such a critical practice here. If you judge this phase too quickly, you'll label it something negative, and that label will reinforce your old pattern. You'll call it stuck. You'll call it wrong. You'll tell yourself nothing's working. And in doing so, you pull yourself right back into the old timeline. But if you can remain grounded, not by efforting, but through presence, then something begins to shift. Beneath the surface, the chaos softens. The sharpness fades. You begin to feel, not push your way forward. And that's the moment you become magnetic. Not because you're trying harder, but because you've stopped losing energy to resistance. Right before the shift, your system is learning how to hold more energetic capacity. And that capacity doesn't come from intensity. It comes from inner alignment. When you choose to stay calm inside uncertainty without labeling it, your entire field starts to reorganize around your stillness. That's when the quantum field responds. So what should you do in that moment? Nothing. Not in the conventional sense. This isn't the time to force results or scramble for control. It's the moment to listen, to regulate, to align. Breathe through the discomfort. Witness the old narratives. Relax your grip on the timeline. Your role isn't to force a new world into being. It's to make yourself available for it. That's the true shift. Not controlling what happens, but sinking into the vibration where it already exists. Next, we'll explore how the quantum field reads your signal and why what you think you're sending may not be what the field is actually receiving. We'll also break down how to refine your frequency so it becomes a clean match for the life already coded into your potential. You don't need to try harder. You just need to hold your frequency, especially when nothing seems to make sense. That's the moment the doorway opens. That's when your reality starts to respond. And that's when the shift becomes unavoidable. Let's go deeper into this because the quantum field doesn't read your words, it reads your signal. But here's what most people miss. Your energy is always transmitting, whether you realize it or not. And what you're transmitting isn't your intentions. It's your embodiment. You can claim you're ready. You can write daily affirmations, meditate with discipline, and visualize every aspect of your dream life. But if underneath all of that, your energetic signal is filled with fear, urgency, doubt, or performance, that's the message the field receives. And the field doesn't decode words. It mirrors vibration. So, what does that mean exactly? It means your internal landscape is your strategy. Your nervous system is the tuner of your entire life experience. And coherence, the clear alignment between thought, emotion, and energetic presence is the frequency the quantum field recognizes. Coherence doesn't ask for perfection. It asks for presence. Think of it like tuning into a radio station. If you're even slightly off the dial, you get fragments, a note here, a phrase there, but mostly just static. Your field works the same way. When your frequency is muddied by contradiction, when you're wanting but not trusting, asking but doubting, speaking but not feeling, your signal becomes distorted. And what does the field do in response to incoherence? It delays. This is why quantum shifting isn't about doing more. It's about refining the signal. But refining doesn't mean suppressing your emotions. It means bringing them into alignment. It means taking full ownership of your energy to the point that there's no longer a gap between what you say you want and how you show up energetically. Here's where most people get stuck. They try to force coherence. They overthink their vibration, dissect their emotional blocks, and treat their inner state like a self-improvement project. But coherence isn't something you manufacture. It's something you allow. It's not the result of control. It's the result of surrender. You can't fake. Resonance. You can't think your way into. Magnetic energy. You arrive there by relaxing into the truth of who you already are. So, what creates that kind of resonance? Clarity, stillness, emotional honesty, the choice to embody the energy of your desire before it arrives, not as performance, not as fantasy, but with quiet confidence. This is the signal the quantum field responds to. I already am. I already carry it. I already match it. Not because it has arrived, but because it's already true. At the level of frequency. And that's the moment your field begins to shift. Not through effort or force, but through attunement. As your nervous system begins to trust this new signal, your energy stabilizes. And when it stabilizes, your outer world can finally reflect it. So, here's your moment of recognition. Comment, I am the shift. Let that statement be your grounding point, not as a message to the universe, but as a confirmation of what's already within you. Speak it not to persuade, but to embody. Because when your words come from your being, the field listens. And when the field listens, reality bends. Next, we'll break down the actual mechanics behind how the field mirrors your inner state, how your focus determines what unfolds, how coherence becomes command, and why trying harder is the least effective path to change. Because once you understand what's truly happening, you don't change reality. You shift into the version of yourself that's already living it. And that shift, it begins right now. Now that you've experienced the clarity of coherence and the influence of resonance, it's time to look at how the quantum field actually responds. If you've ever wondered why some intentions seem to land effortlessly while others remain suspended in possibility, here's the reason. The field doesn't reward desire. It reflects your dominant energetic frequency. And that frequency is shaped by one key factor where your attention consistently resides. Let's break it down. The quantum field is limitless. Every possible version of you already exists within it. Each potential outcome is encoded, not waiting to be created, but to be observed into form. According to the observer effect in quantum physics, particles remain in a state of probability until they're measured, until focus causes them to collapse into matter. That means your attention is not neutral. It's creative. It determines which version of reality comes into view. This is why quantum shifting isn't about force or control. It's about choosing your reality through focused attention and stabilizing that choice through your inner state. Most people don't realize how scattered their focus really is. They think about prosperity in the morning, stress over scarcity by noon, and drift off at night in a haze of worry. That's not alignment. It's a confused signal. And the field doesn't punish confusion. It simply reflects it. That's why results often feel random, inconsistent, or delayed. But when your focus sharpens, when you learn to hold your vision, without clinging, without fear, without urgency, something begins to reorganize around you. The timeline that matches your signal starts to take form. People, circumstances, choices, and tiny moments begin to align, not through effort, but through resonance. You're not bending the world to your will. You're syncing with the version of reality that's already aligned with your vibration. Now, here's a subtle truth most miss. You don't shift through thought alone. You shift through identity. Your conscious mind may desire the new reality, but your subconscious, the deeper emotional frequency you operate from, may still be tuned to the old one. And if so, the field won't reflect your thoughts. It will reflect your identity. This is where internal alignment becomes sacred, not as a checklist, but as a return. Every time you bring yourself back to coherence, not by fixing, but by remembering, you reinforce a new identity, not a self you're trying to invent, a self that already exists, just waiting for your permission to lead. So, ask yourself, who are you being in this moment? Not in behavior, not in performance, but in essence, in presence, in energy. Because the version of you who already embodies the life you've been envisioning isn't out of reach. It's accessible. And you don't get there by striving. You get there by allowing. In our final chapter, we'll bring this journey full circle. You'll discover how to fully embody quantum shifting, not as a technique, but as a way of living. We're also going to explore the final key to anchoring your new timeline so it doesn't just flash in briefly, but becomes your new baseline. Stay with this. The shift isn't coming someday. It's already unfolding. Let's bring this entire journey to its essence. By now, you know, the quantum field doesn't respond to effort. It responds to alignment. It doesn't reflect what you say you want. It mirrors who you consistently are. And the shift, it's not something you reach for. It's something you tune into. It's simpler than most are willing to accept. So simple, in fact, that the ego often overlooks it, dismisses it, or tries to complicate it. But those who truly shift, those who actually inhabit new realities know this. Simplicity isn't a trap. It's the truth. And the reason many never stabilize in their new timeline, it's not because they're doing something wrong. It's because they don't remain in the signal long enough for the shift to fully take root. So, let's be clear. You don't quantum shift by trying harder. You shift by aligning more cleanly, more gently, more honestly. You shift when you stop chasing the future self and start embodying them. Now, that doesn't mean pretending. It doesn't mean forcing yourself to smile when you're in pain. It means holding space for your full emotional reality without losing your identity in it. That's emotional wisdom. That's energetic integrity. And that is what the quantum field listens to. You're not here to hustle for transformation. You're here to become the version of you for whom transformation is natural. And once you do, life stops feeling like a chase and starts reflecting you back to yourself. That's when you move differently. Your energy enters a room before your body does. You speak less but with deeper impact. You ask for less but receive more. Not because you're trying to manipulate the field, but because you've become coherent with it. This is why the most powerful teachers of manifestation don't focus on technique. They embody state. They don't give you something new. They activate what's already been alive within you. They don't add. They reveal. And so now this is your moment to remember. Remember who you already are. The timeline is already available. The one where you're grounded, clear, magnetic, aligned. Not because everything in your external world is perfect, but because you've stopped outsourcing your frequency to your environment. Let this be the shift that holds. Let this be the signal you return to, not to prove, but because it's home. And if you've come this far, you know by now this wasn't just content. It was a frequency. Something in you, subtle but undeniable, has already begun to shift. If you felt it, if something resonated, let that be the sign. You've crossed into a new version of yourself. You don't need to subscribe to a channel. You've already subscribed to a frequency, one that quietly declares, I remember who I am. Welcome home. You've always been the shift. And now the field knows it.